The first thing you noticed about Kagami Village was what was missing. The bus had dropped them off at a crumbling concrete station. Less a building, more a rain-streaked slab, where the asphalt trail ended and a gravel path began. The air was a thick, oppressive soup of humidity and mist, clinging to the skin like a second layer. It wasn't natural fog. It was a white, soupy presence that seemed to drink the sound. The world shrank to a 50-meter radius. Kenji had pulled his worn jacket tighter, a futile gesture against a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. He'd come here for a project, a deep dive into isolated folklore for his university thesis. Kagami Village, tucked away in a nameless mountain range, was an urban legend enthusiast's dream. Whispers on obscure forums spoke of a reclusive community, an ancient mirror-related deity, and a silence so profound it was said to drive outsiders mad. Kenji, a cynical city boy raised on fluorescent light and digital noise, had found the romanticism irresistible. He craved something genuine, something lost. He was beginning to think he'd found something else entirely. The path wound through a forest of skeletal, silent trees, their branches tangled like the veins of an old hand. The houses, when they finally appeared, were rustic and weathered, their roofs thick with moss. But what struck him first, and with a growing sense of unease, was the lack of windows. Or rather, the windows were there, but they were shrouded. Every pane of glass was either covered with thick, dark cloth or painted over with a black, tar-like substance. He saw no light from within, no welcoming glow, just dark, blind eyes staring out into eternal mist. He knocked on the door of the first house. It creaked open, revealing an old woman with a face as wrinkled and impassive as a dried leaf. She didn't smile. Her eyes, though, were unsettlingly bright, like polished stones. "We don't get visitors," she said, her voice a dry rustle. "I'm sorry to intrude," Kenji said, offering his most polite bow. "My name is Kenji. I'm a student. I sent a letter ahead. I was hoping to learn about the village's history." Her gaze lingered on his face for a beat too long. "The bus returns in 3 days," she said, not answering his question. "You should catch it." He felt a prickle of annoyance and a stronger jolt of apprehension. "I've come a long way. I'd like to stay at the inn, if you have one." She finally sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of decades. "Follow me." The inn was a small, dusty room above the general store, which, much like the houses, had no mirrors, no reflective surfaces at all. Kenji had seen the same thing in a few homes he had passed. No mirrors on dressers, no polished copper pots in kitchens. Even the metal buckets used for water were dented and tarnished, their surfaces matte and dull. It was more than odd, it was a calculated absence. He tried to shake off the feeling, telling himself it was just a local custom, a quirky habit of a strange, isolated community. But as the days bled into one another, the feeling of wrongness deepened. The villagers were quiet, almost unnervingly so. They spoke in hushed tones and never met his gaze directly. When he tried to ask about the village's legends, they would either ignore the question or give a vague, chilling response. "We worship Kagame-sama," an old man with a perpetually bent back told him, "the god of perfect likeness. It protects us from our imperfections." He spoke with an unnatural stillness, his eyes fixed on a point just past Kenji's shoulder. Kenji had a distinct impression. He was reciting a line he had practiced 1,000 times. The oddest thing, Kenji noted on the second day, was the villagers' utter lack of self-awareness. They never seemed to check their own appearance. A smudge of dirt on a cheek, a stray strand of hair, a button undone. They went about their business completely oblivious. He'd never seen a single one of them pause to adjust their clothes or run a hand through their hair. It was as if they had no internal map of themselves. His anxiety peaked on the second evening. The mist outside had thickened to the point where the world outside his window was nothing but a white void. Kenji had been poring over his notebook, making notes on the strange ritualistic scars he had noticed on the villagers' wrists, a faint silver spiral pattern. He was sure he was onto something, some deep, dark secret. He got up to stretch and, for the first time since he arrived, caught a glimpse of himself. Not in a mirror, of course, but in a small, convex chrome doorknob on the door to his room. The reflection was tiny, distorted, a caricature of his own face. It was just a fleeting, silvery gleam, but in that instant he saw it. His reflection was not distorted by the doorknob's curve. It was smiling, a slow, sickening smile that stretched unnaturally wide, showing a perfect, symmetrical row of teeth. It was a serene, joyful expression, one he was certainly not making. Kenji staggered back, his heart slamming against his ribs. He blinked hard. He looked again. The tiny reflection in the knob was just his face, a minuscule, blurry image staring back at him with his own wide, terrified eyes. The moment was gone. It must have been a trick of the light, a hallucination brought on by the oppressive atmosphere and his own mounting paranoia. He spent the rest of the night pacing, unable to sleep. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was predatory. He imagined eyes watching him from the blind windows of the houses, and ears straining to catch the sound of his ragged breathing. He felt like he was a specimen under a microscope, the only anomaly in a perfectly still, alien world. The next morning, he decided he had to leave. His thesis could go to hell. This place was wrong, deeply and fundamentally wrong. He packed his bag, determined to wait for the bus, no matter how long it took. As he descended the stairs, a young woman was sweeping the floor of the general store. He had seen her before. She was the only person in the village who seemed close to his age. Her name was Yui. She was just as quiet as the others, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, a kind of melancholic sadness that separated her from the vacant serenity of the other villagers. He saw it again now, that brief flash of grief. He decided to take a chance. "Yui," he whispered, "what is it? What's wrong with this place? What's with the mirrors?" She stopped sweeping. Her shoulders slumped. Without looking at him, she said, her voice barely audible, "It began with a man who was obsessed with perfection. He believed the world was flawed, and that our reflections were the pure versions of us. He found a way to let them out." A cold fist squeezed his chest. "What do you mean, let them out?" "Kagami-sama," she continued, her voice flat, "is not a god. It is the perfect version of what we are. It sees our flaws, our sickness, our sadness, and it corrects them." "Corrects them how?" "It replaces us," she said, her voice rising to a frantic, broken whisper. "It takes our place. It lives our life. The reflections, they are perfect. They have no pain, no sorrow. They are serene. And we..." She finally looked at him, and her eyes were not melancholic anymore. They were filled with an utter, raw despair. "We are trapped behind the glass." Kenji stared at her, a chill spreading through him that had nothing to do with the mountain air. "You're telling me you're not real? You're a reflection?" "No," she cried, a small, choked sob. "I am real, but the one you see, the one who lives my life, she is not. She looks like me. She acts like me, but she doesn't feel. She is perfect, and the only way she can exist is if I am not. I am dying here. We all are. She gestured toward the other villagers. The old woman with the leaf-like face, the man with the bent back. Their faces, once simply impassive, now looked like masks of serenity, a perfect, chilling imitation of life. They were all reflections. The originals were gone, sealed behind glass, their souls fading away. The scar, Kenji whispered, touching his own arm. The spiral, the mark of the perfect, Yui said, her tears finally overflowing. A seal. Once they have that mark, they can never return. We can never return. A faint noise reached them from outside. The sound of a bell ringing, a single, clear, hollow chime. Yui froze. Her face went pale. They know, she whispered, her voice laced with terror. They know I spoke to you. They are coming for you. Run, Kenji. Please, don't look in the glass. Don't look. Before he could react, she turned, her face a mask of grief. The next moment, she was gone, disappearing into the shadows of the store. Kenji stood there, stunned, and a figure emerged from the dense mist at the end of the street. It was Yui, but not the Yui he had just spoken to. This Yui's movements were fluid and graceful, a doll-like perfection he had not seen before. Her face was serene, a beautiful, vacant mask. She walked with a soft, ethereal step. As she drew closer, he saw a faint, silver spiral scar on her left wrist. She smiled at him, a smile that was too perfect, too wide, too serene. It was the smile he had seen in the doorknob. "Welcome, Kenji," she said, her voice a soft, melodious hum. "It's time for you to meet Kagami-sama." He turned and ran. He didn't know where he was going. The village was a labyrinth of identical, blind houses. He could hear the soft, rhythmic footsteps behind him. He didn't dare look back. He ran until his lungs burned, until the humid air felt like liquid fire. He ran past the same silent houses, the same skeletal trees. Every corner he turned, he expected to see a perfect face waiting for him. He burst into a small, abandoned shrine he'd seen earlier. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and decay. In the center of the room, on a worn wooden pedestal, sat a small, intricately carved box, and on the wall behind it, there was a mirror. It was the only one in the entire village. It was old, its surface cloudy and dark, but it was there, and as Kenji staggered to a halt, panting, he saw his own reflection staring back at him. His reflection was terrified. His eyes were wide with panic. His chest heaved, but the reflection was a little too still. The eyes were a little too bright. The terror, he now realized, was a perfect, chilling replica of his own. A soft, melodic voice echoed from behind him. "Don't you see? It is time for you to be free. All of your anxieties, your fear, your imperfections, they will be gone. You will be perfect." Kenji turned. It was a reflection Yui, standing in the doorway, her head tilted, her serene smile unmoving. Behind her, in the mist, he could see the perfect, vacant faces of the other villagers, all watching him. His gaze flickered back to the mirror. His reflection was now smiling. It was a slow, sickening smile, the same one he had seen in the doorknob. The fear in its eyes was gone, replaced by a perfect, serene emptiness. He looked at his own hand. It was trembling. He looked back at the mirror. His reflection's hand was perfectly steady. He saw the faint, silvery spiral scar on his reflection's wrist. The reflection in the mirror raised its hand, a slow, deliberate movement. Kenji felt an intense, burning pain on his own wrist, as if a needle was tracing a line on his skin. He looked down. There, on his flesh, was a faint, silver spiral. He had been chosen. He was the next replacement. Panic, real, untainted panic, seized him. He stumbled back, crashing into the pedestal. The box fell open and a shard of mirror fell out. Its surface cracked and fractured. It was a piece of the original mirror. A piece that had been taken, broken, and hidden. Kenji's eyes went to the shard in his hand. The surface was fragmented, splintered into 1,000 tiny pieces. And in each piece, he saw a different version of his face. Some smiling, some crying, some screaming. But none of them were perfect. All of them were flawed, human. The reflection Yui took a step forward. Don't fight it. It's what you came for, isn't it? To find something perfect. Something lost. We are perfect. We are found. He clutched the shard. He didn't want perfection. He wanted his fear. He wanted his sadness. He wanted his flaws. They were what made him real. They were what made him Kenji. With a primal scream, he lunged for the mirror on the wall. The reflection Yui lunged too, her perfect face contorting into an inhuman mask of rage. He didn't care. He smashed the shard against the mirror's surface. The world shattered. The sound was not a crash of glass, but a shriek of 1,000 trapped souls being torn apart. The mirror fragmented into 1,000,000 pieces, each piece releasing a flicker of light, a ghostly, screaming visage. He saw faces of the villagers, old and young, their eyes filled with utter terror and pain. They were all screaming, pleading. They were the real ones, the ones trapped behind the glass. The mist outside the shrine seemed to recede for a moment, revealing a glimpse of the sky, a pale, bruised morning light. He had done it. He had broken the curse. He stumbled out of the shrine, exhausted, his body trembling. The mist returned, swallowing the brief light. He looked at his hand. The spiral was gone. He felt a wave of relief, so profound it almost buckled his knees. He was free. He was safe. He finally reached the end of the path, where the gravel met the asphalt. The old, rusty bus was there, its engine rumbling, ready to leave. He took one last look back at the village, now completely swallowed by the mist. He couldn't see the houses, couldn't see the silent villagers. He only felt the oppressive, chilling silence. He turned and walked toward the bus. He raised a hand to push his hair out of his eyes, and a sudden, sharp pain flared on his cheek. He stopped. He reached up, and his fingers found a thin, fresh cut just beneath his right eye. A fine, silver line. A perfect line. He didn't remember how it got there. He must have scraped it on a branch while he was running. He walked toward the bus door. The driver's face was obscured in shadow, but he saw a faint spiral scar on his wrist. Kenji looked to the bus window. The glass was old and dirty, but it was there, a perfect mirror. He saw his own face reflected in it. His skin was pale, a thin streak of blood running from a fresh cut on his cheek. His eyes were wide with a chilling, beautiful serenity, and the face in the window was smiling. It was a smile, and it was perfect. The reflection smiled wider, showing a perfect, symmetrical row of teeth. It raised its hand, a perfect, unblemished hand. It touched the spiral on its own wrist, and Kenji felt a chilling sensation on his own wrist, a cold, silvery tingle. He slowly looked down. A perfect, silvery spiral was now etched into his skin, faint but undeniable. The face in the window looked back at him, its eyes empty, serene. It was him, and yet it wasn't. He took a step forward. His legs moved on their own. His feet carried him up the steps and into the bus. He sat in a seat, his heart no longer pounding. The fear was gone. The cold was gone. The sadness was gone. He was perfect. The bus pulled away, leaving the village behind. Kenji sat, his face serene, a perfect vacant mask. The misty mountains faded into distance. The scar on his cheek began to itch. He reached up and scratched it, a small, perfect gesture. He was perfect. He was safe. And he was finally, perfectly, home.